Hello, my name is Steve Klein. I'm from Shorts Marine, and today we're going to be doing a spring start demonstration. And we're going to be going through a checklist of what we do here at Shorts Marine, and we are going to go through the proper procedure to get your boat ready for the season. And now that we went over our checklist, we're going to be starting off with the boat battery. It is one of the most important parts of the spring start checklist. Your bilge pumps, your lights, your motor, all depends on the battery, and it has to be in good shape or it will not hold up. Now we're going to start off and we're going to clean our battery terminals. And we're going to clean the ends. And what we want is them to be nice and shiny, free of all kinds of corrosion that could potentially give you a short or make a bad connection. After we have the battery clean and the battery ends cleaned up, I'd like to test our battery so we know exactly what this battery is doing, and with that we use a battery tester. The battery that we're working with today is a Marine starting battery. It is 440 amps for cold cranking, and this battery is showing 12.22 volts. It could use a surface charge before the boat leaves our facility. After our battery test, we're going to rehook up the battery before we can proceed to check the other components on the boat. What we want to do when we put our battery connections back in place, we want to take a pair of pliers and make sure the fasteners are good and secure. And now I'll go get the battery charger so we can start charging the battery. What we're going to do now, when we did test the battery, we showed the battery was a little bit weak. It had 12.2 volts in it. It was about 70% charged, and we're going to put on a slow charge to bring the battery up to its peak performance. At this point, we're going to go back to our checklist. We have the clean connectors on our battery. We have our battery charge, and we're going to go up now to the console of the boat and check our lights and other accessories. Checking our horn, our navigation lights, our port and starboard navigation lights are working correctly. Now that we have just checked our bow lights, we want to go back and make sure our stern light is working also. On this particular boat, the customer did not supply us with the stern light at the time of you drop the boat off. We do use our shop light, which we're using now, and we do strongly suggest that the keys and all the important safety items are contained with the boat when we do our service. And we see in the stern that our light is working. Now that we've verified our navigation lights, we're going to move on and we're going to check our other instrumentation. Our blower, our bilge pump on the manual mode. Next step, we will turn the key to the on position. We will not start the boat. We're finding out here that our gauges are energized. We're showing 3/4 of a tank of fuel in this boat, that we have 12 volts on the voltmeter. We are now going to go back and move to the motor. On this boat, we have a 4.3 V6 Merc Cruiser. On your boat, you may have a different model, but most of the things are pretty similar that we're going to be checking today. The first thing we're going to do, and it's always important, is we're going to check the oil level in the motor. At Shorts Marine, we always change the oil and the filter at the end of the boating season during our winterization process. So on this particular boat, it has already been done. If you did not do that, this would be the time to change your oil and filter before you use the boat. And this oil is at a proper level and it's fresh oil. The next fluid we'll be checking is our drive oil reservoir. Our Merc Cruiser product, you have a reservoir for your drive oil. It is a closed system. It should never go down unless you do have a leak, and that would be a seal in your drive unit. During the winterization process, we always pressure check our drive units for any kind of seal leakage. This was done on this boat, and our level is up to the operating proper level. The other fluid we will check now is the power steering. This particular model is equipped with power steering, and when the engine is cold, it is at the proper level. The other fluid we will be checking is also the power trim, and this is what makes your drive unit go up and down. The trim unit on this boat is located in the stern. It is hard to see, but you can visually look back there and check to see the level of the oil, and on these it takes motor oil. the same oil used in the motor, and this level is acceptable. Once all our fluids are checked and they are at proper levels, we're going to move on to our alternator belts. They are loosened at the time of winterization, and they need to be adjusted before we start the motor in the spring. On this motor, 4.3 Merc Cruiser, it's a later model motor, and this particular motor has a serpentine belt. On the earlier Merc Cruiser models, or any other inboard, outboard motor, they may have V-belts, and they all have to be maintained and tightened to the proper tension. On this, we're looking for about a 1/2 to a 1/4 inch deflection. We will be adjusting the belt at the idler pulley, and it also is a tension pulley. And I believe we're in good shape. Now we'll go back to our checklist. We went through our running lights and our dash accessories. We've checked our alternator belt and our fluids in our motor. And we do not want to overlook our fuel lines going from the tank to the motor and from the outside of the boat to the fuel tank to make sure that they're not dry rotted or have any kind of leakage. What we're doing is checking to see that the clamps are tight. Fuel lines should have double clamps at the filler neck, which this one does. The vent hose, it's in good shape. And also the fuel line going from the tank to the motor. When we go to the fuel line to the motor, there is a fuel filter. This has been changed at winterization, but if you did not have it changed at that time, we strongly recommend that you change it before the season. During the winterization process, we unhook the coil wire so the motor cannot be accidentally started. So we're going to hook that back up. And we're also going to visually check all our linkages and wiring around the motor. We're checking our hose clamps to make sure nothing got forgotten in the fall. We're looking at our linkages will be free so that we have a smooth startup. Everything looks fine on this particular motor. The next step, what we're going to be doing is we're going to go back up to the front of the boat and we're going to check our tilt and trim operation. Here we're looking at our trim meter. As the drive is coming down, we're looking at the relationship of the needle, and it is corresponding with the drive. After we verified our trim is working, we're going to check our automatic bilge float switch. This is our automatic float switch, and we're going to check the proper operation. And now we're going to go outside of the boat and check our oil levels in our drive unit and also the condition of our bellows. What we're going to do now is we're going to check the Outdrive. This is what is known as the Outdrive unit. It is a Merc Cruiser Alpha Gen 2. What we're going to do is check to make sure that the prop is securely in place and the locking tabs. There's 3 locking tabs and they must be in the grooves so that the prop cannot come loose. When Shorts Marine does its winterization process, this unit is removed. The seals are checked. There is brand new lube oil put in the lower unit, but at the spring startup we still go over it and check the drain and the fill screws just so they unintentionally didn't get left loose, and we just want to make sure they're good and tight and the drive oil is at the proper level. You should have some oil come out of this hole, and it's right there at the top of the hole. Just want to check with a little straw that comes on a WD-40 can or a wire tie, and all you need to do is dip it in there and see if there's lube oil on the tip of your straw, and that'll tell us that it's at the proper level. We're going to take a second look at our drain plug washer to make sure it's in good shape, and we're going to reinstall the top oil level plug. Make sure it's good and secure. And we'll go to the bottom drain plug and just check it for tightness, which this one is tight. The other thing we like to take a look at is the zincs. On this boat we changed the zincs in the fall, and these are brand new zincs. You want to see these at the end of the season start eating away. And if they're eating away, they're doing their job, and it's protecting the aluminum on the outdrive. So zinc should never be overlooked. The next thing we want to check is the condition of our water tubes and our bellows. And the reason this is so important is your shift cable and your drive shaft goes through two separate bellows, and if one should get a hole in it, your boat will take on water. And these are in very good shape. What we're going to do next is lower the drive unit, and we're going to put a water hose with a set of ear muffs and get to be prepared to run the motor. At the bottom of the outdrive is what's known as your intake grate, and it's a series of holes in each side, and this is where your seawater will be pumped up in through the motor. And what we'll do is simulate that with a set of flushing mops, and they will just clamp right over the intake grate, and we'll supply it with fresh water before we start the motor. We have water going to the outdrive. We're going to get in preparation to start our engine. First thing you would want to do is turn your blower on. You would want to run that for a minimum of 5 minutes, and that would clear the engine compartment out of any explosive vapors. We're going to go over here. We're going to check to make sure that our safety lanyard is in the run position. If it is not in the run position, the motor will not start. On a cold start for our motor, we're going to make sure that is in neutral. Then we're going to depress our lockout button so that we have accelerator only. We're going to push it forward. On this particular motor, it is a carbureted motor, and we're going to just give it a few pumps, and we're going to start the motor. What they will do is it'll take a few tries to get the motors to start on a carbureted engine, because we do run them out of fuel in the fall. So you need to get fresh fuel up through the carburetor and through all the necessary parts of the manifold before we can get the motor to start. Once that is completed, the motor should start. It will smoke a little bit. The smoke should clear up. And now we're going to be checking our gauges. We're going to quick take a glance to make sure we have proper oil pressure, which we do. We're at 50 pounds, and the next step is to check to see that we have overboard discharge coming out of the back of the motor. The reason we check for overboard discharge is to make sure that there's water flowing through the motor. If for some reason there is not, you will burn up your seawater impeller, and then you would have to disassemble the outdrive unit and put a new impeller in its place. So we have that going. We're going to check. We're looking to see that the alternator's charging. It's not uncommon for it to go to 14 volts, 13 or 14 volts, especially at the beginning of the year. We're also going to be looking at our water temperature. This will require a few minutes for the motor to warm up, and we'll be checking that. They have to run at a proper temperature, which anywhere between 155 and 165 degrees is a good operating temperature. Okay, what we're doing now, we're giving it a few minutes to warm up. What we can also do at this time is we can check forward and reverse operation. You push in your safety D10 button on the shift handle. Put the motor in reverse. You listen for the sound of the gears engaging. We know we had a positive engagement. We come back to neutral, and then we're going to go to forward. When you do this, you have to be very careful that no little children are at the back of the boat when you're doing it, because you do have a spinning propeller, and you should never lose sight of what is going on back there. So nobody should be behind the boat in close proximity when you're doing this. While your motor's running, this particular boat has power steering, and you do want to check proper operation of your power steering unit. This boat, everything's the way it should be. It steers smooth. There's no chatter in the wheel. If you felt excessive resistance, you could have a dry steering cable, and it would have to probably be replaced. But it is an important feature, that step that you don't want to overlook. Now that the motor's been running for a few minutes, we're looking at our temperature gauge, and we're seeing that it has rose to the proper operating temperature. What we're doing now while the motor's running is we're going to go back, we're going to take a light, we're going to visually check the motor for any leakage, whether it be a fuel line water lines, exhaust, and oil. And on this motor, everything checks out good. There is no leakage. Our manifolds are running nice and cool, and that's what we like to see. And our operating temperature at our thermostat housing is up to the proper operating temperature. So this motor is it's in good shape. The next test we're going to do is the safety lanyard test. This is the safety lanyard. It should be hooked to your life preserver when you're underway. In the event you should fall out of the boat, this will trip and it will shut the motor down. This safety lanyard, if that is in the down position, this motor will not start. Now that we went through all our procedures and we let our battery put on a fresh charge, we're going to disconnect the charger and we're going to re-hook up our battery tester to check the condition of our battery. This is showing our battery is good, that we have 12.61 volts and the proper cranking amperage. We'll disconnect our tester, put our battery box cover back on, make sure it's secured in place, wash the boat, and it'll be ready for the customer to pick up. Now that we've completed the steps of our checklist, we cleaned our battery connectors, we charged our battery, we checked our running lights, we inspected our fuel lines, we checked all our fluid levels, we checked our propeller nuts, we tightened our alternator belt, we installed our coil wire, we started our engine up, checked over for any leakage, we checked our shifting from forward to reverse, we checked our tilt and trim operation, we checked all our gauges, checked our steering, we checked our zincs. We will tag the steering wheel to let the customer know the boat does not have a drain plug in, and that would complete our spring start.